Brothers and sisters across the world. Today I speak not just as a man, not just as a soldier or a leader of a nation, but as a voice among millions who cry out for dignity, justice, and true independence. The world is changing. The eyes of the people are open. No longer can we accept a future that is dictated by foreign interests, economic chains, and the legacy of colonial control. We are at a turning point in history. Across Africa, and indeed across many parts of the world, a fire is rising in the hearts of the youth, a fire of resistance, of pride, and of hope. It is not a fire that burns to destroy, but a fire that brings light to truth and warmth to those left in the cold by global systems that profit from our poverty. To the people of the world, we do not seek war, we do not seek division, but we demand respect. We demand the right to determine our own destiny. Our lands are rich, yet our people are poor. Our voices are loud, yet we are ignored. This contradiction must end. To the powerful nations, you built your wealth from our sweat, our minerals, and our silence. That silence is over. We are not your enemies, but we are no longer your servants. Cooperation must be based on equality, not domination. Aid must not be a tool for control. We want partnerships, not puppeteers. To the youth across Africa and the world, you are the engine of change. Do not wait for permission to dream. Do not ask for freedom. It must be taken with courage, with unity, and with unwavering belief in our right to be free. Educate yourselves. Organize. Speak up. Stand up. Your voice is the most powerful weapon you hold. To the oppressed, to the marginalized, and to those who are tired of being forgotten, know that you are not alone. The struggle of one people is the struggle of all people. Whether you are in the streets of Ouagadougou, the fields of Palestine, the townships of South Africa, or the favelas of Brazil, our struggle is shared. Our liberation is bound together. Let us rise together. Let us reject fear. Let us rebuild nations that serve the people, not foreign masters. Let us write a new chapter in human history, one of justice, of freedom, of dignity, not just for Africa, but for all humanity. Ibrahim Traoré's call for true independence is more than a political statement. It is a cry from the soul of a continent that has endured centuries of exploitation, manipulation, and control. He speaks to a long and painful history in which African nations were stripped of their autonomy, their resources plundered, and their people denied the right to define their own future. True independence, as he envisions it, is not just about the absence of colonial flags or foreign administrators. It is about full sovereignty over land, over wealth, over decisions, and over the narrative of what it means to be free. For many African countries, formal independence came decades ago. Borders were redrawn, constitutions drafted, and national anthems played in newly declared republics. But beneath the surface of these changes, much remained the same. The economies continued to serve the interests of former colonizers. The currency remained tethered to European financial systems. Military training, political advice, and development strategies were imported from abroad. Leaders who resisted were often replaced, not through democratic processes, but through coups supported by foreign powers, often in the name of stability. Traoré's voice brings this reality to light, not to dwell on the past, but to warn against repeating it. His message is direct. Political flags mean little if the people cannot eat, if they do not own the fruits of their labor, if decisions about their lives are still being made in foreign capitals. Independence, in the truest sense, must be rooted in control over natural resources: gold, uranium, oil, fertile land, and water. For too long, these resources have enriched others, while local communities remain trapped in poverty. Multinational corporations extract wealth while leaving environmental destruction and little sustainable development behind. Contracts are signed in secrecy, royalties are minimal, and the benefits rarely touch the lives of ordinary citizens. Traoré rejects this model. He calls for a new paradigm, one where African resources are used first and foremost to build African futures. But sovereignty is not just economic. It is also political and cultural. Traoré points out that many African governments are still heavily influenced, even indirectly controlled, by foreign agendas. Aid money often comes with strings attached. Policies must be adopted, alliances formed, or votes guaranteed in international bodies. Foreign military presence is justified under the banner of fighting terrorism, yet it often undermines local authority and accountability. In this environment, true independence cannot be achieved. The people must be the only source of legitimacy for governments. Policies must be made in Africa, for Africans based on the continent's realities, not imposed blueprints from abroad. There is also a cultural dimension to this call. Traoré understands that the battle for independence is fought not just in parliaments and resource contracts, but in the minds of the people. A colonized mindset, one that sees foreign ideas as superior, foreign goods as better, and foreign leadership as necessary, must be challenged. He calls on Africans to reclaim their identity with pride. Indigenous languages, traditions, and knowledge systems must be restored and respected. Education must empower students to think critically, not just to recite facts drawn from foreign textbooks. Independence, he insists, begins with self-belief and a clear understanding of one's own value and history. In making this call, Traoré is not advocating for isolation. He is not rejecting cooperation with the rest of the world. Instead, he is drawing a firm line between cooperation and domination. Africa can and should engage globally, trade, share knowledge, build alliances, but on equal terms. No more partnerships where one side gains and the other remains dependent. No more decisions made behind closed doors without the consent of the people. He dreams of an Africa that stands tall at the table of nations, proud, capable, and in control of its own future. This vision of true independence is both ambitious and urgent. Traoré knows that the road ahead will not be easy. Powerful forces benefit from the status quo, and they will resist change. But he also knows that the spirit of the people cannot be crushed. Across the continent, young men and women are waking up. They are asking questions. They are demanding change. They are ready to take responsibility for their future. And in this rising generation, Traoré sees hope, not just for Burkina Faso, but for the whole of Africa. True independence is not a gift. It is not a slogan. It is a duty and a struggle. And through his words, Traoré invites the entire continent and the world to recognize that the time for half measures is over. The time to reclaim Africa's destiny has come. When Ibrahim Traoré calls for respect and equality on the global stage, he speaks not only for Burkina Faso, but for countless nations across Africa, and beyond that have been treated as second-class participants in the world system. His demand is simple yet deeply profound, that Africa should no longer be viewed as a subordinate, a pawn in international games, or a land defined by need and dependence. Instead, African nations must be acknowledged as equal partners, sovereign, capable, and deserving of dignity in all international dealings. For decades, the world has operated in a way that favors the powerful. The institutions that set global rules, whether economic, political, or security-related, have too often been dominated by the interests of a few nations. These powerful countries, backed by wealth and influence, shape the terms of trade, control international finance, and intervene, directly or indirectly, in the domestic affairs of weaker nations. Under the banner of diplomacy, development, or defense, unequal relationships have flourished. What Traoré demands is a new kind of relationship, one that is grounded in fairness and mutual benefit, not in the legacy of empire or the logic of control. Respect means listening, not dictating. It means recognizing that African nations are not empty vessels waiting to be filled with outside solutions. They are rich in culture, intelligence, and resilience. Yet too often, when African leaders speak out, especially those who challenge the established order, they are dismissed, undermined, or even targeted. Traoré stands firm in asserting that African voices must not only be heard but taken seriously in shaping global policy. Africa does not lack ideas. It lacks the space and freedom to implement them without external interference. Equality goes beyond the symbolic. It is not just about sharing seats at conferences or signing declarations of friendship. It is about ensuring that decisions affecting global markets, climate policy, conflict resolution, and technological development are made with African countries at the table, not just as observers, but as active decision makers. Traoré points out the double standards that often arise. When powerful countries make decisions in their own interest, it is called strategy. When African countries assert their needs, it is called resistance or defiance. This kind of framing must end. Every nation, regardless of size or GDP, has the right to pursue its own path. The call for respect and equality also extends to the economic sphere. Traoré draws attention to the deeply unequal trade relationships that persist. African countries export raw materials at low prices and import finished goods at high costs, a pattern that locks them into a cycle of dependency. Global trade rules often favor wealthy nations and penalize those trying to industrialize or protect local industries. Loans and financial aid, while useful in emergencies, often come with conditions that erode sovereignty and promote models that may not align with local realities. Traoré is clear. Africa does not want charity, it wants fairness. In advocating for mutual respect, Traoré is not pushing for confrontation. He is not anti-Western or anti-globalization. What he opposes is exploitation in the name of partnership. He understands that the world is interconnected and cooperation is essential. But cooperation must be based on trust and transparency, not manipulation and pressure. Real partnerships require acknowledging past wrongs and working to correct them, not pretending they never existed. They require listening to the concerns of African citizens, not just the preferences of foreign investors. For Traoré, respect and equality are not abstract ideals. They are the foundation of a peaceful and just world order. A world built on exploitation will always be unstable. A world built on fairness has the chance to thrive. He urges powerful nations to reconsider how they relate to Africa, not from a position of dominance, but of shared humanity. There is much to gain from working together as equals. Africa offers resources, yes, but also creativity, youthful energy, and solutions to global problems, from food security to renewable energy to peace building. This vision is both a warning and an invitation. If the world continues to ignore Africa's call for equality, the consequences will grow, resistance will harden, and trust will erode. But if the world embraces a new path of mutual respect, the rewards will be shared by all. In standing up to demand equality, Ibrahim Traoré is not dividing the world. He is trying to unite it on just terms. The time to build those relationships, rooted in dignity and truth, is now. In his powerful speech, Ibrahim Traoré places the youth at the very center of the struggle for transformation. He does not speak to them as a distant leader offering empty encouragement. He speaks as one of them, as a young man who understands the urgency, the frustration, and the potential that the youth carry. For Traoré, the future is not something that will be handed to young people. It is something they must seize for themselves through courage, knowledge, unity, and relentless action. Africa is a continent defined by its youth. With one of the youngest populations in the world, it holds within its borders a tremendous reservoir of energy, talent, and creativity. But too often, this potential is stifled by systems that fail to include them, economies that do not employ them, and politics that do not represent them. Traoré's message is clear. Young people must not wait for permission to act. They must not wait for broken systems to suddenly start working in their favor. The time to rise is now. The time to take ownership of the future is now. He urges the youth to start with education, not only formal education in classrooms and universities, but self-education that builds awareness, critical thinking, and a deep understanding of history and current realities. Traoré understands that true empowerment begins with knowledge. Young people must study their nation's pasts, not the sanitized versions often taught in colonial textbooks, but the real history of resistance, struggle, and identity. They must learn the mechanisms of power, understand how decisions are made, how systems are maintained, and how those systems can be changed. This knowledge is not just for personal advancement, it is for collective liberation. But knowledge alone is not enough. Traoré calls for unity among young people. He warns against the divisions that weaken movements and make it easier for those in power to maintain the status quo. Ethnic, regional, religious, and political divisions must be overcome. Unity does not mean uniformity. It means building a shared vision, finding common ground, and standing together even when opinions differ. Traoré reminds the youth that their greatest strength lies in solidarity. When united, they are unstoppable. When divided, they are easily controlled.